FCTV viewers, welcome to another edition of What's Growing On. And I'm Jayne Spooner, and I'm a University of Minnesota Master Gardener here located in Faribault, Minnesota. And I'm kind of celebrating a milestone because as of last month, I became a 20-year Master Gardener. So I've served the University of Minnesota and everybody here in Rice County for over 20 years. So I'm really excited for my accomplishment because, you know, I've got to meet a lot of cool people and I get to show you a lot of cool things, which is even better. So what are we gonna do today? You know, hey, it's February, it's cold out, we've had a lot of snow, and we're gonna talk gardening and we're gonna talk about winter sowing. And you're thinking, sewing? I don't sew. I don't know how to thread my needle. And that's not the kind of sewing I'm talking about. I'm talking about sowing seeds. So we're going to learn a different method of seed starting. I know here at the library, a fellow Master Gardener, Lisa Reavers, usually does a class on seed sowing for indoors, but I'm taking it outside. It's something that's new. It's fairly new that people are trying, and it's coming up with great results. And it's basically planting seeds in soil in plastic jugs and then sticking them outside. And you're thinking, what in the world? It's cold out there. Well, one thing that's kind of cool about it is eventually as it warms up, this is going to act as a little greenhouse for you. And the other thing is it's outside and you don't have to worry about heat mats inside, you don't have to worry about watering inside, and you know, the space taking up in your house. This just can all be set outside. So how does one accomplish winter sowing? Well, over the course of the time you save up these jugs. This is a water jug. I have an apple cider jug. I have some milk jugs, juice containers. The biggest requirement that you need on these jugs is to have them be tall, and then make sure that they're either clear or opaque, like the juice bug jug there or the milk container. You don't want anything dark, you don't want anything like a green, say 7-Up bottle, but you can use soda bottles, but as long as they're clear, because again, you want that sunlight to come in as unfiltered. So what do you do? How do you start, setting up your little greenhouse? So anyway, see the lid on the top? You just take and toss that. So this is a jug that I've kind of prepped my other ones over there just for the sake of not having you watching me fumble with a drill. So here we have the jug. I've pre-drilled some holes in the bottom. Just putting them in there. I guess the battery wore out, but I'm gonna do that ahead of time. And what I did was, you're supposed to measure 2 to 3 inches up from the bottom. So I kind of did some markings. I wanted to make sure, being this is my first time, that I had enough soil in there. So what I did was, let's see, where's my cut? I measured up about 3 inches, and what you're going to want to do is cut just about all the way around the jug, because you want to leave like a flap. And the purpose that I used to mark this was I wanted to make sure that I kind of met all the way around, because I couldn't really eyeball it because it's kind of an unusual thing. So in order to get that started, I just used a box cutter and just stuck a hole in there. And I don't like using box cutters because I'm not real coordinated. Safety first. And then I just bought just a kitchen shear like this, or if you just have a scissors. Don't use your sewing scissors for this. And you just cut around to reach that side. Like this. So you want to create that flap, okay? Oh, and just one other thing, there's another way that you can actually put holes in the bottom is get a pliers. Take a big needle like this, take a lighter, heat it up, and then you can just press it right through there. So again, safety first, use the pliers because this is a conductor, so if you heat it up here, it's going to get hot up here. Don't burn your fingers. So here we go. So what kind of soil do you use in this? So, we have potting container soil that we use when I do my container gardening. So for this process, you're gonna wanna use like a seed starting mixture. And I found this was one of the things that as I was reading and researching it was an organic mixture called Pro Mix. And a lot of people were recommending this as a really good organic fill for your containers, and it has perlite in it, some peat moss, and there are some people that actually make their own. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you a website that you can go and look for more information and stuff. So this is what I'm using today. So what I did was I took this Pro Mix soil and I put it in this container, because what you want to do is you want to pre-moisten it before you put it in your jugs, because it's a little bit easier. It kind of settles it down because it's kind of light and loose, and so this way it's a little bit easier, when you water it, that when you want to get it started, you're not going to have your soil floating away like it does in container gardening. So here, dumped it in, and I just poured water in a little bit at a time and just kept mixing and mixing and mixing. And as you can see, there's a little bit of perlite in there, and there's some organic mixtures and stuff in there. And you want to get it about as damp so that it kind of keeps a ball shape like that. You don't want it muddy, because then it's just not going to work. So got that all mixed up. This little plastic pellet, and you just fill it up. And just to note, I've never done this before, so this is kind of an experiment. Hopefully, in a couple of months when it warms up, I'm going to invite Troy back, and we'll try and do another video to see how they're actually growing and if they're growing. So anyway, so you just fill it up like that. You want to kind of clean the soil off, because you're going to have to put some tape around it to kind of secure it. So seeds. I'm going to plant 7 different things today. And again, it's surprising at what you can winter sow. I found great annuals, perennials, just all kinds of lists. A lot of vegetables you can do. If you stop and think about it, if you are an avid vegetable gardener and you have a tomato that falls off the vine and you don't get it picked up right away and it rots, you always have kind of a large group of tomatoes that will sprout in the spring for you, so you can either use them or pull them or whatever. So vegetables are a really great way to start. And the nice thing, what I'm doing here with the vegetables that I'm going to be winter sowing, is the fact that there's always the standard ones that you can buy in the grocery store or in the greenhouses, but I like to try different things in my garden. I like to try different peppers. I'm gonna do a bunch of parsley, because I like to put parsley in my vegetable gardens, not only there but in my butterfly gardens, because they act as a host plant for butterfly and for their larvae. And it's a great way if you want to add a lot of perennials to your garden, because they can get kind of spendy, and by adding all these, by doing this winter sowing, you can get more variety. And the nice thing is people kind of think, well, with this winter sowing, how is that really working? Well, when you're outside like that and they're already subjected to the cold temperatures, like when you're doing indoor sowing and seed starting, over the course of time, as those seedlings grow up and it starts to warm up, you have to move those trays in and out and in and out. And what that is, what it's calling it is hardening off the plant. By putting them in these jugs, you're putting them outside, you're already subjecting them to some elements. They're still protected in a greenhouse. And so they're already in the hardening off process. And they might start out a little bit smaller than what you've done on the inside, but from what I've been reading and from what everybody is saying, that they catch up very, very fast, because they've had that hardening off and they've been subjected to elements already. So anyway, choose your seeds. So what I've done is, because I want to remember what each one that I've planted, so I'm putting a marker on the inside, just like this. because sometimes if you mark on the outside, it might fade off or wash off, even if you use like a permanent marker. So I bought these little tags at the dollar store and then just got out my label maker and I just put it in there. That way I'll know what to plant. And so I've got my dirt in there, and what you're going to want to do is look on the back side of the packet of your seed. So you're going to want to find what the planting depth is. So this is a 1/4 inch depth that you want to put these parsley seeds into. So if you're using a bigger seed like say a nasturtium or a sunflower or whatever, you might want to just poke a hole and put those seeds in there. But with this, I'm just going to sprinkle out a few. I mean, those are tiny seeds. So you're not going to want to put a lot in there, so you're going to kind of have to just kind of space them out. It's going to take a little work. And then as they start to come up in the spring, if they really look crowded in here, you can either try and thin it out, which you kind of do in your vegetable gardens anyway with certain things like lettuces and carrots and whatnot. So you can see I'm just, so you can kind of just do that. Okay, and then set that aside. So now what I'm going to want to do is just take some of this dirt in my container. And again, 1/4 inch to cover it. And you're just going to want to sprinkle it on top. Tap it down just a little bit. Because again, this is acting as a greenhouse, so the wind isn't going to be blowing it away or anything, so you can kind of tamp it down. Now you want to give it a little bit of water. So one of the things that was suggested, if you're just doing a few of them, to just take a spray bottle like this. If you're going to do a lot of them, which I've been reading these people doing like hundreds of them, they'll buy like a 5-gallon sprayer and use that, and it's a little bit more efficient. But I'm just taking this and just spraying it. Okay, and that should do it. Now we just close this back up, kind of wipe off some of the dirt there. And then we're going to take either a clear packing tape. This is a Gorilla style packing tape, or you can use a duct tape. The clearer the tape that you put on here, the better, because again, you want that clearness so that it's acting as that greenhouse. So just take it around. And there you go. And then take a Sharpie like this, and you can just write across it. It's not going to get you any points for penmanship, but so anyway, so there's your first little greenhouse. Now, when you're deciding where to put this outside your house, you want to make sure first and foremost that it's not placed in an area that gets a lot of wind, because they're not very heavy. They're going to tip over. If you don't have a lot of protected area, I know people will take containers such as this, more clear, like an old clear container like this, drill holes in it so it does act as drainage, because as it rains, the water's going to get in through this hole and it still needs to drain out here, so you need to make sure it's drained out of this container. You're going to want to put it in a location that's going to get a lot of sun, so like morning sun, afternoon sun. I wouldn't go on the north side of a building. and just stick them out there. And don't worry, you know, if you get some snow and the jug becomes covered, that's okay, because snow, as it gets deeper, it acts as an insulator anyway. And so what's happening is that seed is in there and it's working away, and it's, especially in the case of perennials, it's called cold stratification. So if you have a lot of perennials in your garden, and a lot of them, like especially like coneflowers and rudbeckia and certain things, they have seeds will drop and you're getting those flowers all over your yard. Well, the cool thing about stratification and the seeds of that sort is that that's acting as the puts it into dormancy, and then as the freeze thaw of the ground is happening in the winter time, it's getting that seed ready. And seeds are very smart. You saw the little seed in my hand? Their genetics actually tell them when it's the right time to generate or to germinate in a situation such as this. So put this outside and then just kind of put it and forget it. You don't have to water it, because as it gets in there, it's going to water it. It's going to drain out the bottom. If you don't feel that you got enough water in here ahead of time before you put them outside, take a pan, fill it with a little bit of water, and let it soak in there for a couple hours. Again, it's just however you decide to do it. And then just, like I said, forget it. So now in the springtime, when you start to see some germination happening in there, you don't want that to stay hot all the time, because if you go past greenhouses, you're going to see that they have vents on their roof. And having worked in a greenhouse, it's on an automatic timer where if it gets to a certain temperature, those vents and those windows will open up to release some of that heat, because too much heat is not always great. You're going to fry your plants. So what you're going to do is, as it heats up outside, you still want to keep them covered, but you don't want to take this all the way off. Just take a box cutter and just continue to cut some small slits in there to leave more air out. As you know, as it goes on, and you know that there's no danger of frost, you can kind of pull that cover back even in overnight temperatures, but never get rid of it, because you might want to take and use that as a cloche in your garden too. So you never want to get rid of it. You might want to cut it off, but just put it to the side so you always know that you can put it on and use it as a cover. So that is what you do for winter sowing. And I've got some other jugs here that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to do a perennial, I'm going to do a marigold, I'm going to do some rudbeckia. I want to add some of that. I like that orange in there to add to my butterfly garden. And adding some different kinds of vegetables to my garden. This is a Corno di Toro pepper, which is a great Italian frying pepper. It's very tasty and sausage and peppers. Shishito peppers. And then one of my favorite is a San Marzano tomato, which is great pasta, and then Brussels sprouts. Who'd have thought I'd ever like Brussels sprouts? If you ever see me, ask me about my junior high Brussels sprouts story. It's pretty funny. So that's kind of the fun part, you know. And another good way and another fun way to maybe try some different things is check out in the early fall or in the early spring, because there are some things that you can plant a little bit later with this method. Check out the seed library at the Buckham Memorial Library, and it's a chance for you to try some different things to your garden, because I don't know, I just like a variety of things. So like I said, I want to pass on this information to you with this website. It's called www.wintersown.org. And there you're going to find all these plant lists. It's great because they have some of them broken down into different zones. Another thing I'd like to share is, you know, for sowing herbs, this is great if you like an herb garden and you want to do some different herbs and want to do a multitude of them. This is a great way to start those herb seeds, but you're going to want to start those later on in the winter, because they're a little bit more tender and will tend to they could freeze a little bit easier than this. So, and then along with the wintersown.org website, you know, go to Facebook and go to Instagram. There is a lot of information out there. There's a lot of groups out there. There's some good information out there. Sometimes you have to kind of be careful going through it, because there's some of these people that really like doing this and are planting 100 jugs. And it's great, but you have to find a place to put them. And there's also the Goodhue County Master Gardeners also have a podcast on winter sowing. So there's a lot of information out there. And go to the University of Minnesota Extension website, and there's some information there as well. So like I said, I have a whole stack of information that I've been using, and I'm going to give this a try. And as soon as they start to sprout, fingers crossed, we'll invite you back over to my house and see how they're doing and kind of do a follow-up through the season on them as we go through. So just want to thank you for taking your time to watch this little show today. We had some fun here, planting some seeds, getting my hands dirty a little bit, and just go out there, do some winter sowing, think spring, and happy digging.